in Africa, given the fact that you still have ethnic divergences in many countries?
Yeah, Ambassador, let me just start, but taking into account the experience in Rwanda, the African Union, I think, was the first to incorporate in the Constitutive Act, due to that fact of Rwanda, in the Constitutive Act of the Act of the African Union, which is the charter, actually, of the African Union, the possibility of the organization to intervene in a member state in case of genocide. So that's why, despite the difficulties at the United Nations to negotiate in 2005 the outcome document of the 2005 summit, the notion of responsibility to protect, Africans were the one who were most, let's say, at ease to accept this notion, because we had it already in the Constitutive Act of the African Union. So yes, there is mechanisms in the African Union for such cases. Now, question may come to capacity. Capacity to intervene. As you know, in case of conflicts, the African Union has developed what we call peace and security architecture. Peace and security architecture, which goes from the Council of Peace and Security, which is, let's say, the sister of the Security Council in the African side, the Panel of the Wise, the warning system, and regional brigades, which have made a very important steps as well. Regional brigades will be able to be mobilized in a very short time to intervene in a country if need be. So we are working on capacities. You have seen it. We are in Somalia only as African force, although with the assistance of many partners. But the Africans are the only ones in Somalia today. We are also in Darfur in collaboration in UNAMID with the United Nations. So Africa has been working to develop this capacity of intervening in case of crisis in the continent. And
because the question is critically important, with your permission, I'd like to add a supplementary to the response. The problem was the concept of the responsibility to protect, or R2P. This was a concept that was developed most aggressively by the previous Secretary General, namely Kofi Annan. And the idea was that it is the duty of states to protect any or to act against any intervention which has ethnic overtones. Duty. And if the state finds itself in trouble, it's the duty of the international organizations to intervene. Now, this concept was immediately approved by the African Union. The Africans are all on board. But a number of other countries, including some very powerful ones, whom we shall not name out of politeness to the soil on which we stand, have opposed the idea of responsibility to protect because they cannot accept the automaticity which is called for in R2P. They want to be able to decide when to intervene or when not to intervene. But as far as the Africans are concerned, they have the cleanest record. They have intervened willingly in Darfur. They have intervened willingly in Somalia. And they have elsewhere also proved very successful in their willingness to intervene, both politically, economically, and militarily. But it was, thank you, it was a very important question asked.
I hesitate to ask whether they'll be intervening in Pakistan.
Soon. Soon.
Soon.
If NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, can intervene in Afghanistan, and I don't understand how Afghanistan is in the North Atlantic, but this is American geography. And so if NATO can intervene in Afghanistan, then why can't the African Union intervene in Pakistan?
We have time for 2 more questions.
No, it's okay.
I can barely. Do you think in the first row?
Yeah,
Dare we?
It's okay.
He was right
If
from the
you would stand up and
I think it's okay. Let's people pose questions.
you'd speak a little louder.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk today. I just wanted to clarify the point you made about the rethinking about redrawing the borders of Africa. Because if that's an option to avoid killing, to avoid ethnic cleansing, like was suggested by Muammar Gaddafi earlier in March, that about the Nigerian issue, then why Africans are not going for it? We have witnessed this in Europe, like Bosnia and Herzegovina recently, or Kosovo in 2008, where they redraw their borders. So why not in Africa?
The question is, if there is a choice between maintaining the borders and not opening the Pandora's box, and the fact that if you maintain the borders, then you will have continued ethnic tensions, which may break out at any time into ethnic cleansing, as in Rwanda or in Bosnia, etc. But you have chosen to maintain the sanctity of the border. How are you going to prevent the ethnic tensions from blossoming in future?
Yeah. If I understood the question, why Africa should not do the same, then I would not like to export his experience of Bosnia to the African context, as well as the African context may not work in another part of the world. But in our experience, you refer to maybe to the example of the great leader. I want just to correct that it was not a question of borders in that part of Africa, in Nigeria. It was a different question. But we thought that this is the only way we could avoid really conflict on border questions. And being aware of that, we prefer to work on mechanisms. First, by taking the decision of the Organization of the African Unity to keep the colonial borders, and second, to work on border programs. I think these preventive measures are better than having the borders today split over and open a Pandora box, because the way it was really done in Africa is just very different in many parts of the world. Africa is a unique case, so I'm really afraid to compare it to other parts of the world. I think we should look at the African reality, taking into account its history, the way we described it, the way borders were made in 1885 in Berlin.
We can take one more question. Yes, miss, in the 4th row, please. And speak loudly and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Estina. We've been talking about African unity for several decades now. I'm from Ghana, and I know since 1957, when we attained independence, our leaders have tried to unite the African continent in terms of a common currency, in terms of removal of barriers of trade and other aspects. But we are still where we are, still not able to achieve a united Africa. My question is the UN providing any form of direction or leadership, or is it a sole responsibility of the African states?
The question is whether the experience of the African Union in its integration